All right, everyone, Simply Bitcoin. We break down the daily Bitcoin news from Twitter, the daily fail, daily meme review, software releases, and the websites by plebes. Drop us a like and subscribe. All right, we're going to the numbers. All right, we are currently sitting at a block height of 670,331. The current Bitcoin price, 47,525. Chain rewrite days, 586. Total lightning capacity, 1,072.46. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.46. Sats per dollar down a bit, 2,104. Not bad.
Not bad. But no Satoshi the Bitcoin chicken, because that was an all-time high. I did kind of tease you guys a little bit, though, but you guys are going to have to wait for Satoshi. It's time for it.
The daily fail. All right, so today's daily fail, okay, which is brought to us by at Sats Hodl. All right, shout out, man. Thank you so much. So we've got a little bit of a story to tell, right? So a lot of Bitcoiners like Nassim Taleb, right? Because he's written the Incerto. You know, there's all those great books. You know, Anti-Fragility and The Bed of Procrustes, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the other titles. But anyways, okay. So he says he's been getting rid of his BTCY. Currency is never supposed to be more volatile than what you buy and sell with it. I guess he's developed this rule. Anyways, you can't price goods in BTC. Okay, so as something goes through price discovery, you know, it's not a currency. So he's just decided that all of a sudden it's done. He's rationalized with himself that he's selling it. Okay. So before I go on my rant about Nassim, okay, this is back in 2020. Okay, I got blocked when he wrote this because I of course responded. Okay, he goes, I explain in Skin in the Game, which is another one of his books, scale transformations. Bitcoin is a good idea, but almost all Bitcoiners are total idiots. Okay, so I responded to him that was fairly disingenuous. I wasn't even rude, and I said, so we're complete idiots, but we're good enough to buy your books, aren't we? And of course, I was blocked for that. So it's a complete, you know what? I've never seen somebody who talks such a hard game and is so soft and just blocks like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, he can do whatever the hell he wants. It's his Twitter. But the guy's freaking weak. And for all of the, the wonderfully intelligent stuff that he writes, I mean, some of his stuff, you literally have to sit there with a dictionary just to read a paragraph of his work. So wordy, right? It just sounds so intelligent when he could probably say it so much simpler. But anyways, it's just such a terrible fail because you see he's like building up the rationalizations. Like, man, go ahead. You've decided that Bitcoin has run its course for you, and you've decided to sell it. So, man, get the fuck out. Nobody cares. And what's also interesting is that he wrote the foreword for the Bitcoin Standard and didn't even read the Bitcoin Standard. Well, Saifedean actually announced, I believe it was today, that Michael Saylor is going to be writing the foreword, who has read the Bitcoin Standard. So this ought to be interesting. Anyways, screw you, Nassim.
Yeah, man. I don't know what it is, Phil, but I think I'm starting to see a pattern here with blue check marks on Twitter and their opinions about Bitcoin. Because they always end up being terrible. It's always the person has a hidden intention, they're Nuriel, they're Peter Schiff. It's the blue check marks on Twitter. Stay away from them like the plague because they just lie. They lie. They have their own narrative. It's insanity, right? But Phil, I think you summarized it perfectly. That being said, it's time for
the daily meme review.
All right, everybody. The meme for today is brought to us by Bitcoin.us. His handle is Bitcoin is us. Awesome plebe account. Definitely recommend the follow. He has some strong memes. 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. Huh. Okay.
Okay. I like it.
Okay. Could be stronger, but I did get it. Made me laugh. Phil, I'm gonna give that a 7. What about you?
All right, yeah, I'm gonna go with the 7.5. It's pretty much it's in the same range. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that those are very clever in the sense that they are obvious. Okay. Like you look at them and there's no frill, and it just, all right, I get this. This
It,
totally makes sense.
it plateaued. It
Yeah.
was
It's
like
like, it
strong,
could have been a picture of anything, right? And you would just get it.
started strong, but then it didn't have like a an ending moment, like a firework moment, I guess. Anyways, I'm just talking crap. Phil, it's time for it.
The Daily News, sponsored by Crypto Cloaks.
All right, everybody, we have some pretty awesome news. This has been a week full of news, and it's just a continuation of that pattern. We've also had some epic fails this week. Super cool. So check out this headline by the Wall Street Journal: Bitcoin to come to America's oldest bank, BNY Mellon. The custody bank plans to eventually treat digital currencies like any other asset. Now, this is really interesting for a number of reasons that I guess you can't really see on the surface. One being the oldest bank, right? So if you see the oldest bank, moving or at least preparing itself and announcing it publicly that it wants to prepare to eventually custody Bitcoin, you could kind of get a good indication of where Bitcoin is in terms of the mainstream, right? The mainstream acceptance. Not that Honey Badger matter, not that it matters to the Honey Badger, but like it's really interesting to see this change of attitude from they hate it, they want a little bit of blockchain but no Bitcoin, to we're going to custody Bitcoin, So I saw that. It's just more of a continuation of what we've been seeing. Phil, what are your thoughts on that?
So look, the smarter institutions know that blockchain is bullshit, and they know that, sure, they could probably scam with it a little bit, but in the long run, it's just a waste of time. I think they've also come to the realization that they can't ignore Bitcoin anymore, and they also want a piece of the pie. And the thing is that they already have giant customers. They just don't maybe necessarily have giant customers who custody Bitcoin with them. So, this is the thing about, about customer loyalty, right? Like once you have a loyal customer, and once a person is always willing to, to come back because, they like the way that you make them feel, and, they're happy with the service. Well, you know what? It's not going to be a difficult stretch for them to decide to custody a new asset that they hold with you. So, they're kind of already there. And if they do the job right, they are going to be able to, take a lot of market share. But I think the reality is that I could also see a situation where these types of, like BNY Mellon goes out and decides to buy a company like, let's say, Unchained Capital or something like that. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, they're not the innovators, right? Like they're just, boring old doing nothing, but just having tons of capital to throw around.
Exactly.
So I see them only entering the space in this way. Sorry.
And you're exactly right. And I think that if they don't innovate, they're going to die. And I think that a couple people in those corporations understand that, and they're making background moves to at least accept Bitcoin and possibly custody it in the future. Speaking of banks, this is kind of a follow-up. You're gonna have to watch the last Simply Bitcoin episode where we actually covered this, where the Bank of Nigeria literally started banning people that had any relation to buying Bitcoin, right? So it looks like Nigeria's Senate summons central bank chief to explain crypto ban. Of course, we all know where the 92% of the money flowing into so-called crypto is going. It's going to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is literally the only crypto that matters, of course. But I see this kind of as a prelude, Phil, to what we're going to start to see around the world, when I think that the Great Awakening, people are going to start to realize that it's not so much their government's in control. It's more so their central banks that are pulling the strings, right? So, it's just absolutely crazy that the Nigerian central bank felt like they had the authority to just start closing Bitcoin related accounts without even asking any type of permission from the public, right? And if you understand the Fed is very simple. It's not an official government. It's like a separate thing. It's in this weird gray area. And what's stopping them from doing the same thing if their system is threatened, which obviously we saw in Nigeria because they don't have a that strong of a fiat currency. You know, I think it's a scary foreshadowing of the wars to come between central banks and Bitcoin, right? Phil, what are your thoughts?
Oh man, I mean, look, this is just the beginning. We're barely scratching the surface. We've been saying this for months, and the truth is that we are going to see some serious draconian stuff that is going to come out of many countries, fearing that their public awakens to the fact that they can go store their value somewhere else. And look, they are, of course, going to do everything that they can in their power, to try and stop it. And look, the Nigerian government is just the latest one, right? It's just the latest one, the loudest one, and they're making a stink. And look, at the end of the day, you realize that they don't have any power, right? Like at the end of the day, it's all in the central bankers, right? Like the banks have all the power. I always say this, we are not the customers of the government. We are supposed to imagine that, the government works for us and that we are the customers, but we are not the customers of any government, right? It's the lobbyists, it's the people who, have interests that, provide major funding to the governments that are the true customers of the government. So this is just it's a charade that we watch.
Absolutely, and that was very well said, Phil. And yeah, it's another example and another friendly reminder as to why we at Simply Bitcoin always recommend taking your coins off exchanges, self-custodying your coins, because that is what actually gives you power, and that is what is defunding their broken, corrupt system in the process, right? So self-custody is so important, and I think that Nigeria, it's funny, Phil, because you mentioned that earlier. Literally every single country that has tried to ban Bitcoin so far, what they've actually seen is an increase in the peer-to-peer marketplaces within their country. It's pushed Bitcoin underground, and Bitcoin actually gets a 20% premium in those said countries in which it is illegal, right? So it's like people naturally, the free market naturally flows to the soundest, the strongest, the best money there is, and it's just the Nigerian central bank, they're screwed. That's
for sure.
That's the way I see it. All right, guys, that was our show. Forgive us for any technical difficulties, especially on my side, the camera shaking, the weird chair, like 1970s, 60s, 50s chair. And, it's just, I've been traveling, so unfortunately we missed an episode, but, we'll try to make it up to you guys. But if you guys like the show, don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps us, especially on YouTube. And if you love the show, if you really do, subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow for the weekend edition of Simply Bitcoin.